Oh, you got the mirror set up.
All right. Good evening and welcome everybody to the May 11th, 2021 meeting of the Yellow Springs Planning Commission. My name is Frank Godin and I will be chairing the meeting tonight. First thing I'd like to do is have the clerk call the roll of Planning Commission members, please.
Yeah, Doden.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Curlis.
Here.
Amend.
Here.
Stiles, are you here? Stiles. Zaremski, we're going to give Stiles 5 minutes. If she has not joined the meeting in that 5 minutes, we will ask if you can sub in. So if you could stay tuned, please. Also present is Planning and Zoning Administrator Denise Swinger and our Village Solicitor Brian Parcels.
Thank you very much. First thing I'm going to do is just briefly review what the agenda is for tonight. First thing we'll do is review the minutes of our previous meeting, and then we'll talk a little bit about communications that we have received concerning issues on tonight's agenda. Then there'll be a time for council report, time for called citizens comments, which is the time for people to talk about things that are not on tonight's agenda. And I'll remind everybody of that when we get there as well. After that, we have public hearings, 6 of them, and old business, new business, agenda planning, and then adjournment. I'm glad everybody could make it here for this early meeting. You probably have noticed as you come into the meeting that you're on mute, and we ask you to please remain on mute until there are times for a public discussion. And after you've raised your hand electronically, then you'll be unmuted so that you can speak. If what happens is if too many people are unmuted, we get weird feedback and a weird echo going on Zoom, and people can't hear what's going on. So that's the reason why people are coming into the meeting muted. So first thing we'll do is review the minutes from our April meeting. Okay. So members of the Planning Commission, if anybody has any corrections or clarifications needed on page 1. I noticed that I think the date is wrong. It says Tuesday, March 9th.
Thank you. I'll correct that.
Okay. Anything else anybody has on page 1? Okay. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4.
So on page 4, this really isn't a correction, but
okay.
It just reminded me of an issue that we talked about and then kind of went around, was this use of shipping containers as a fence. And I don't know what the appropriate place is to get back to that, but it seems like they're actually more like a structure.
Okay.
So I don't know where that fits in, but.
Yeah, maybe we could just talk about that a little bit at the end of the meeting in new business or something like that.
Yeah.
So okay. Anything else on page 4? Page 5. And page 6. And then page 7. Okay, I'll move that we accept the minutes of the last meeting with the correction that was suggested on page 1.
Second.
Okay, will the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes. Curlis.
Yes.
Amend.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
And I am just having Stiles recused from the vote since she was not yet a member of Planning Commission, and Sarah, or Susan, I do see you there.
All right. The next item on the agenda is communications. And I believe, is it correct, Judy, that we've received 6 letters? Or six communications, letters, emails? I think that's right.
Yep.
Okay. All of them, well, 3 of them concerning the transient guest lodge application for 420 North Winter, and 3 of them for the transient guest lodge application for 324 West Davis Street. And I believe they're all, for a variety of reasons, opposed to those transient guest lodge applications. So some of the details of those will probably come up when we get to those specific public hearings. So, okay. Council report. Oh, I'm sorry, Susan. Oh, Susan, you're on mute.
She may not be able to unmute.
Okay. Okay, she's unmuted now.
Okay.
Susan?
Since Judy, you said that I'm not yet on planning, so does that mean I'm not voting tonight?
No, you are now on Planning Commission, but you were not at the time of the last meeting, which is
Okay.
minutes that they were reviewing. Yes,
Okay.
official at this point. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so now we'll move on to the council report, which Laura Curlis and perhaps Josue as well. Okay. So Laura?
Yeah, so since our last meeting, council passed legislation implementing fees on all transit guest lodging operations, with those for non-operator occupied paying an additional fee of $1,500 as a housing mitigation fee. Council passed an ordinance establishing an affordable housing fund, the revenue stream for which is the housing mitigation fee. The changes to Chapter 1262.08 also mean that after June 3rd, 2021, there will not be legally anyway any non-operator occupied TGLs permitted. Council passed an amended version of the Planning Commission recommendation for text amendments regarding TGLs. Amendments moved by me were added for non-operator occupied permits. The zoning administrator will also send a copy to the Greene County Auditor, and a minimum of 1 off-street parking space per 2 adult guests shall be provided for the lot for the transient guest lodging unit, in addition to the off-street parking spaces required for the principal dwelling unit. Also, council brought forth legislation to enact a DORA, a designated outdoor refreshment area, but the legislation received no second and therefore died on the table. I asked for a work session on the topic, and the village manager followed up with the Chamber of Commerce to host a session on a possible DORA with the business owners to see if there's any reason to bring the matter back before council at a later point. Because of I'm not going to go any further, but that's the basics, council update that affects Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you very much. Josue, did you have anything else that you?
Yes, there are a couple other things that I think that would be of interest to Planning Commission, and that is, you may have heard about the Clean Ohio grant application for the Glen Helen. So part of the sale of the renewable energy credits is being used as a commitment for the match for the Clean Ohio grant application for the Glen Helen to support the removal of the power plant that is a danger to the environment and a public safety concern. So I think that's something that'd be interest of you. The others, there was a resolution to rename the Ellis Bike Spur to the Dressler Connector. That being a public space and a part of our active transportation network. I think that's of importance to Planning Commission. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay. All right, now we'll have a time for citizen comments. And as I mentioned before, this period for citizens comments is for comments about anything that is not on tonight's agenda. So if you want to make comments about any of the public hearings that we're going to be having, there will be a time for public comments when we are doing those individual public hearings. So this is a time for just items that are not on the agenda. So if there's anybody who wants to say anything, I think you go to the upper right-hand corner of the screen and electronically raise your hand, and we'll have somebody keeping an eye and let you speak. And I'll give everybody a few seconds to electronically raise their hands or make themselves noticed in some fashion. Okay. Seeing anybody, Raven? Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. So then we will move on from citizen comments to the public hearings. And as I said, I believe we have a total of 6 public hearings tonight. The first one.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Because I couldn't hear the dialogue. I didn't know if Judy had mentioned that we had 2 people that were coming in late and we might need to move the agenda around a little bit.
Okay. Which agenda items
that
are
would be
they?
the 202 Fairfield Pike and East Center College Street.
Okay. So numbers 3 and
I think the other one was, let's just switch 3 and
3
4.
and 5.
Yeah, so maybe just switch
Okay.
3 and 4
So we can switch 3 and 4 around.
and see where we're at.
Okay.
At that point, I did let them know that if they weren't online yet, by the time we got to Cresco, that we were going to go with Cresco and they were just going to have to come in after that. And one
Okay.
person was getting off a plane and he just wasn't sure because we changed the time to 6 and he had,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Are we making
Okay,
that
and since
swap
we-
now? Are we making the swap now?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and switch. We'll switch 3 and 4
3 and
around
4?
for now.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so we'll move on to the first of the public hearings. I'm going to, especially because of the number of public hearings that we have tonight, I'm going to ask members of the Planning Commission to let Denise finish her complete report. So if you have questions as she's going through something, maybe make a note of it. And then when she's finished with her report, then you can go ahead and ask your questions. Okay. So the first conditional use application, Joe Pauly submitted a conditional use application for an accessory dwelling unit and transient guest lodging at 402 North Winter Street. So Denise, would you like to give the staff report on that, please?
Sure. Jill Pauly purchased the property in October 2019. It's located in the RB moderate density residential district. She plans to build a garage with an accessory dwelling unit on the 2nd level. According to her TGL application, she intends to use both the primary dwelling and the ADU for transient guest lodging, and then would live in the ADU when she is here to visit family. Because ADUs can be up to 66% of the total living area, not to exceed 800 square feet, whichever is less. The primary dwelling at this property measures 996 square feet, and that was after subtracting the open porch area, which is not considered usable living area. That would allow the maximum size of 657 square feet because the applicant intends to build a 650 square feet structure that meets the requirement for the maximum size. The height of an ADU maximum size is 24 feet, and that is what she is proposing, a height of 24 feet for the accessory structure, which is the garage at the bottom and the accessory dwelling unit at the top. She meets the lot coverage maximum allowance at 2,500 square feet, which is the maximum for that size lot. The total of all structures comes in under that at 1,837 square feet. As you know, we measure that by the building footprint. There isn't a garage or a driveway at this property. So in this case, a driveway would be allowed for the garage. We did receive 3 letters in opposition to this project. 2 were opposed to the use as a transient guest lodging. The other letter was opposed to the garage ADU with concerns regarding the 5-foot side yard setback and raised the question of why we require a 20-foot driveway length, why that was necessary. To clarify, the setback is from the furthest extension of the structure, whether it's a balcony or a roof eave. we don't measure from the building's footprint. So because we allow for 5-foot setbacks. But in 126002A2 of the dimensional provisions regarding average front setbacks, it does state in there, in no case, however, shall the front yard setback for a garage, whether attached or detached, be less than 20 feet in order to provide adequate vehicle parking space in front of the garage without blocking a sidewalk or otherwise impeding pedestrian movement. Now, I think our solicitor would probably be okay with this if we had the Public Works Director review this, and if he deems a reduction in the length would have no effect on the public right-of-way, she could apply for a variance if you do approve the garage accessory dwelling unit. Because the Safe Routes to School project, the village recently added sidewalks on the east side of North Winter Street, so I can't imagine that they'll probably put sidewalks on the west side of North Winter. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Any members of Planning Commission have any questions or concerns at this point?
So the
Go ahead.
driveway thing is just, so the 20 feet from the road to the garage,
From the property line.
from the property line, but the entrance of the, is on the north side of the garage? Or is it pointing towards the
Well,
road?
the house actually doesn't face, I'm trying to think, it doesn't face, well, it does. I think it has an entrance, but the house is on a corner lot. So it has, I think she can show this. There you go. All right, so the proposed area is, as you can see on that, that would be 20 feet from the property line.
Okay,
Even though we do have a wide area of right-of-way there.
okay,
So, I mean, if you do approve the accessory dwelling unit, I mean, they, could go for a variance to maybe set that back a little bit closer to North Winter Street
okay,
if you wanted to satisfy the one neighbor's request.
okay. And is the homeowner here, somebody can, like, just, I'd be interested to know why what the thoughts were about putting it and orienting it that way, pointing north.
Hi, this is Jill.
Hi, Jill.
Hello.
Hi,
Nice to
Ann.
meet you. So the question is regarding the orientation of the structure.
Yeah.
It's because there isn't enough room to rotate it towards North Winter because of the driveway length requirement.
Okay. Okay.
So yes, I would be interested in asking for a variance for that to address the neighbor concern.
Okay. So without that, you'd prefer to have it turned so that the garage doors are pointing towards the North Winter?
I would, yes.
Okay. All right. And is that something, what has to happen? Is that something that is, is that?
I can speak up to that.
Okay.
The Planning Commission can impose a condition that the variance be sought through the BZA process, since that falls under the jurisdiction of the BZA.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but I'll follow up with a question later.
It's the Board of Zoning Appeals. We would have to file a request to them to have a variance
Okay.
allowed for that. So,
Okay.
any other members of Planning Commission have any questions or concerns, Sarah?
So currently there's not the required off-street parking available, correct?
That's correct. There isn't any garage there. There's a parking. A lot of people on North Winter Street actually park there's like a graveled area in the right of way. But this particular property doesn't have a garage, and they do park in the right of way.
So you're adding the driveway to meet this condition?
Well, if you're gonna, it's just following the zoning code. So if it's saying it has to be 20 feet from the property line. And if you install a garage.
But you're adding the driveway to meet the condition for this transient guest housing.
She wants a garage, yes. So she has to have the driveway.
So have we ever approved one of these before the secondary structure had been erected or the off-street parking existing?
Not under, since I've been here,
Yeah,
but
no.
Because it kind of seems as a matter of procedure and how it reads and how this reads, I believe, to the third one, too, that
What
this
page
should
you on,
already be.
Sarah?
John, well, right now I'm just looking at page 3 and page 4, because it specifically states that no new access points or driveways shall be created or installed for the access to the accessory dwelling unit, and that's not existing right now. So as a matter of procedure and how it goes, shouldn't the garage be existing and the driveway be existing in order to meet this condition as it's written?
I don't interpret it that way. I mean, if somebody wants to build the garage without the accessory dwelling unit, they're allowed to do that. It's a permitted use. She doesn't have a garage on the property, so she's not creating a new curb cut. There's nothing there. So
Yeah, so there's nothing there.
ADU, you can't create another driveway access on the property.
What you're saying, Denise, is that.
But it is new.
But it doesn't exist. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah, there's not
she does-
already one. You can't create a second one.
right,
Is that right?
right.
That's the idea?
That's the way I interpret it.
Okay.
In other words, if somebody if there's a garage on that, if there's already a driveway on a property and then they want to come along and build an accessory dwelling unit, they can't create a driveway for that accessory dwelling unit.
But it's not written that way specifically in the code.
Well, I defer to the solicitor.
What do you?
Because if she comes tomorrow and asks to just put the garage up, she should be able to get the driveway.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it as even how the comments are written that it in any of the previous ones that I have that, you know, technically this is new. And all the previous ones have already had an existing structure, you know, had the structure there and the curb cuts there and the entrance there. And so as the property sits and as is now, it doesn't have these. So we're creating these to make this happen. And then I'd also have a question just about the interpretation for the neighborhood impact and pass used on the neighborhood impact before we get going on this.
No, yeah, go ahead with your question.
I just, if there's more detail about the interpretation, because
Okay.
how it's written right now, it's pretty loose.
Okay.
I have a question then.
Mhm.
I guess sort of following up, that it seems to me that it's premature to be asking for approval for a TGL for the accessory dwelling when the accessory dwelling isn't there. Nor do you necessarily know it will be there. We have her saying it's going to be there, but plans haven't been filed. It hasn't, you know. So it seems to me that she should apply for the TGL after the accessory dwelling is built.
If there's nothing in the code that says that is the requirement. So we've processed those before that way.
I know you have, but it's
That's how it's been handled since the TGL code was changed in 2019.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Brianne, could you say that again?
It's a matter of precedent in terms of that's how it's been done since 2019 when the TGL code was changed.
So that was my.
That an ADU and a TGL could be applied for at the same time.
So that was my first question. So when has this happened before?
Denise can say that.
What's the question? I'm really trying to get.
ADU and TGL being applied for concurrently.
We just did one on Limestone Street. He hasn't completed the renovations of a barn to turn it into an ADU, but he also applied for the TGL.
But that's an existing structure.
Yes.
You also just heard one in the Birch 3 development. The entire thing hasn't been built yet, and
Oh, that's true.
the TGL.
Yeah.
But I have a follow-up question for Brianne with regard to Sarah's question about the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
Is it even the purview of Planning Commission to be able to weigh in on the driveway, since the garage is a permitted use and the driveway goes to the garage? Are they not only weighing in on the permission for the TGL?
Yeah, the conditional use is for the TGL and the ADU, because
So driveway comes off the table.
yeah, the driveway, again, Denise has, put in the staff report that there is a setback issue with the driveway. But again, as far as the driveway is concerned, if it was just built as a standard garage, it would be permitted. So the driveway itself is not something that, unless the Planning Commission wants to make a condition, that she also seek BZA approval for a variance. Because they've also done that before since I've been here.
But to clarify, she only needs to seek that variance if she wants to vary from the way she now has it
From the setback, yep.
Right.
to please her neighbor. Thank you.
Unless Planning Commission requires it as a condition.
Yes.
And I'd like to comment on getting the TGL before you build it as a landowner. It takes a long time to renovate some of these structures into additional housing as an ADU or TGL. And before people make that investment, they need the certainty that they've got approval. And often that's a requirement just to get your permit to do the improvements, for example, if it's renovations. So I think that's really important that people get that first before they invest a lot of money.
Any other questions or concerns from members of the Planning Commission?
Well, I had the other question about the
No.
Neighborhood impacts and past precedents based on that.
Yeah, and Brianne can answer that.
As far as the neighborhood impacts are concerned, that's really up to the purview of the Planning Commission in terms of, 126204, you're looking at protecting the interests of not just the property owner, but the residents, business owners, and landowners immediately adjacent to proposed use or activity and the community as a whole. And you're also making any findings relating to the 126203 general standards for conditional use permits when you make a finding that the proposed use will be compatible with the character of the general vicinity. And as far as what that entails, it's really up to the Planning Commission. I mean, that's your job to weigh all the factors and make a determination that under Section E of 126203 that the proposed use is, and I quote, not detrimental to any person's property or the general welfare by reason of excessive production of traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, odor, or other characteristics which are not compatible to the uses permitted in the zoning district. I know that's a mouthful, but that's what the code says.
So one of the neighbors who wrote in is concerned about extra noise and party atmosphere. And I'm just obviously these kinds of concerns are going to come up probably for every one of these TGLs. And I'm just wondering what, I don't have any near my house. I don't know what, whether that is or isn't an expectation. Is there a consensus about whether there is going to be extra noise and a party atmosphere, or I don't know, or are people relatively quiet and neighborly?
Denise, can you speak at all about the history of problems with transient guest lodges so far?
Well, I don't know that they call the zoning office, so I haven't heard of
Okay.
any other than what I did get in the letters for the 324 West Davis property. The applicant is new to the community and had started her TGL without realizing that she had to get permission. And so there was some history already being provided by the neighbors. So I really can't respond to that. Maybe the police department has, but I'm not aware of any.
The only thing I would add on to that from the police department, we did, in the presentation to Planning Commission back in March, we did pull all that police department data, and there was only one property that actually had a TGL permit with a noise complaint, and it had actually been before TGL was a conditional use process prior to 2019. So there was only one complaint made to the police department out of, it was more than 1,000 that we asked them to review since the code had been adjusted in 2019 and in 2017.
I do think, we've had cases, especially we've seen that with home occupation permits, where we get a lot of support letters, but they come from the other side of town. I think that they as a factor, they carry more weight if they are the adjacent or budding neighbors.
And in the code, what does proximity mean? Has that been used prior? Is there a standard definition of proximity or of neighborhood that is used, or do we go to the Census Bureau? Or
it's not been defined. That's pretty subjective. So we provide the transit guest lodging map just to kind of show you what is also in the area in this particular on this particular property. I don't believe. Shoot, where's the map? Raven, do you have the map for that one?
So Exhibit C.
Exhibit C.
So I measured it on GIS. It's 261.5 feet.
I think that might be Exhibit B. There should be a separate exhibit. There we go.
That's it right there.
There it is.
Yeah, so the one that looks like the sun there is the property we're discussing. And then what transient guest lodgings are around in the area from that.
So could someone go to GIS besides me and confirm, because I'm getting 261.5 feet.
From the other one?
Yep, from the nearest. And then there's 3 more within 600 feet.
Also, that setback on the rear property, that's so there's an extra little lot there, so that isn't included in that setback. The setback is from the property line of the main lot.
Mm-hmm. That's another property owner's property.
So, oh, okay. So there's actually whatever that is, 45 feet from the structure to the neighbor.
Well, this is looking at the closest other transient guest housing is the feet that I'm talking about.
Okay.
But someone's shaking their head about the adjacent land tract, but Judith is. But yeah, no, I'm referring to the amount of distance between this proposed unit and the nearest other transient guest housing. And then there's 3 additional ones within 600 feet.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns from members of Planning Commission? Jill, Polly, are you still there, I assume?
Here.
Would you like to speak to any of the questions or concerns that have come up so far that you've heard?
No, not so far. I mean,
Okay.
I'm willing to comply with, the requesting the variance. Interested to hear what any of the letters are that came in as well. I don't know how to speak to, controlling the noise. So I don't have any comment on that. I won't purposely seek out party goers.
Who's
All right,
watching over your property locally
Yeah.
since you're in California?
So I currently have a long-term or annual renter in the main structure. I'm originally from the area, born and raised. I moved out to California when I was 30. So all of my family is in the area. I'm the odd one out in California. So my father in particular, oftentimes will go by the property to check on it.
So my understanding though is you wanted to make both the primary dwelling and the ADU transient guest lodging. Is that correct?
That's correct, kind of. I'm happy to speak through my logic if you don't mind me taking a few minutes.
No, please.
Okay. So as Laura, I believe, pointed out, ADUs can take some time to build. There's a long road between here and when an ADU is completed. My plan A, yes, would be to build the ADU. Actually, let me take another step back. Sorry. I sought out to purchase this property with the intent of having a place to stay when I come out to visit my family. I had originally been looking for a property that already had some type of an ADU on it with the intent of myself staying there, renting out the main house, and then short-term renting the ADU for when I wasn't there. I didn't find that. I found this 402 North Winter and I bought it sight unseen because I fell in love with it. And it doesn't have a garage or an ADU. So my intention was always, I'm going to try to build this, the garage and the ADU, stay in it, rent it out short term. That's where the TGL is key for me. I like a plan B though. This ADU could, for a variety of reasons outside of my control, not end up happening, right? And so I wanted to be able to have the option to turn back then to the main property, given that my primary goal here is that I have a place to stay when I come to visit my family, and that it also has the flexibility for some short-term rental in order to help subsidize the cost of the property. So for that reason, I structured my application the way that I did, so that the TGL application, yes, is for both the primary house as well as the future ADU. In case the ADU ends up falling through for whatever reason that it doesn't happen, I could still have the option to have that on the primary house.
So I have a question for the solicitor. The conditional use is only good for a year, and then you can come back and request a 1-year extension. So there really isn't, it's not a case where if you're going to do this, it's something that you need to get moving on. But I guess the question is, if they come back after a year and the ADU hasn't been built yet, and they want to continue the transient guest lodging for the ADU, wouldn't the new requirements then apply, or would they not?
It depends. The typical lawyer answer. So if the ADU is built within that year and the TGL is not used, then the question becomes, well, was it used for the main structure that's already there? So as she noted, she's applying for it because she wants to have a plan B. So the new rules that will take effect, as Laura noted, June 3rd, if she were to not have the TGL activated by June 3rd of 2022, then yeah, she wouldn't be able to reapply for an extension on the TGL if neither the ADU or the primary structure had been used as a TGL. But because of the new rules taking effect June 3rd, it's 1 TGL per property or per owner. So,
And no non-operator occupied.
and no non-operator occupied. So, the Planning Commission, if it were to get an application for an extension of the TGL that was, if presuming that the Planning Commission does grant a TGL today, that's again a presumption, but presuming the Planning Commission approves a TGL for the ADU or says we're going to put a condition on it that it can only be used for the ADU, because Planning Commission can, again, impose conditions based on the code as it is now. So if Planning Commission was wanting to restrict it based on proximity to other TGLs or any other factor that's currently there in the code, they can do that. But if you get a request for an extension in a year and it hasn't been used, and that's the reason you're getting a request, you can apply the new law to that extension, because it's like a new application almost.
That's what I was wondering, if that's how they would need to treat that, because, with COVID and construction materials, things are slowing down a bit. And it's, I don't know realistically if she would be able to accomplish that in 1 year.
Yeah. And again, it's up to the Planning Commission to say there are special requirements that are supposed to be imposed that are in the code for TGLs. And then Planning Commission can say, we want this condition because we are responsive to these factors that are in our code. And it can say, we don't want the primary residence to be used as a transient guest lodging property. We only want the ADU, or vice versa, or it can give the applicant some flexibility under the current code.
All right. Any other questions from staff or members of the Planning Commission?
So if we wanted to set a precedence for feet to actually set a definition for proximity without anything being in the code, what would be your suggestion?
Are you asking me, Sarah?
Yeah, Brianna. Yeah.
Okay. For actually setting a precedent for what is proximity.
Since there's no guidance.
Yeah, you've looked at those factors before. And I mean, there are various definitions of proximity depending on what part of the code you're referring to. I mean, when you're talking about the pandemic protocols that council adopted back in July, it's 6 feet. That's proximity. When you're talking about state law and sexually oriented offender residency restrictions, you're talking 500 feet or 1,000 feet from elementary schools. So if you set a precedent, basically saying, as you noted, it's 261.5 feet to the nearest TGL right now, and that is too close, it's always going to be very fact dependent what the Planning Commission considers to be too close. But you would have that precedent to refer to in future decisions in terms of a concentration of TGLs.
And what's the area of Yellow Springs? Do you know that off chance? Was it 3 miles?
What's the bumper sticker? 2.2 square miles.
2.2.
Is that the new one? Because we annexed Glen Helen. I think it's like 3.1 now.
Yes.
3.1. 3.1. Okay.
Yeah, how many acres?
Update that bumper sticker.
Let's hope you're accurate.
Yeah, we need a new bumper sticker.
Okay.
So if I say a tenth of a
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for this conditional use application. So if there are any members of the public who would like to comment about this, please wave or perhaps use the electronic button in the upper right-hand corner of your screen to raise your hand, and one of the hosts will let you in, and try to limit your comments to 2 or 3 minutes. Let's see, is it Laura Taylor? Is that right? Your name's teeny tiny on my screen.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see the electronic button, or I would have.
No, that's all right.
Fancy thing. I am the neighbor that, if this thing is built as currently planned, would be literally 5 feet from my backyard property. So again, my concern was if there's a way it could be a little further away, because it's not just a 1-floor garage, it's a 2-story building. And I also talked to Jill about, it would be very intrusive if the balcony or the stairway to this critter overlooked my backyard. You know, it would be noisy and very intrusive, because we're talking about somewhere between 7 feet, 5 and 7 feet or something like that from my backyard. So if it was a 1-story building, I could plant trees or something, or bushes, but being as it's 2-story, I don't know how I would protect myself from that. So that's my main concern. I mean, ideally, I would like to have cows on one side of me and horses on the other, and maybe some deer on the third. But I have a lot in town, and so I personally, especially since I know that Jill's family lives locally, and she's responsive if I have any concerns about the renter or the renter's animals or anything. You know, I know that somebody will come and figure things out if needed. So I know there's all this politics and stuff about these things, and I'm just speaking of the closeness to my backyard. So I would appreciate it if it could be moved, especially since there is a huge right-of-way along North Winter Street. If it could be moved a little bit that way, I would appreciate it. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Lon. Thank you. Anybody else? Is it Judith? Oh, she's on mute, so. Somebody unmute Judith Woods, please.
Okay.
There we go. There you are.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody. Wow. Okay. I'm Judy Woods. I live at 410 North Winter. I am the next door neighbor to 402, to this property that we're discussing tonight. I sent in my statement, and I tried to be brief and concise, which means I left a lot out. I mean, as I'm hearing this discussion and seeing more of the detail on the plan for the new structure, I can see that I left some things out. For example, the driveway or the deck overlooking the structure, like that. So I'm going to try to get my points out there and try to be brief again, but we'll see here. I made 2 points.
We have a lot to get through tonight. So.
I know you have a lot of people. So I made two points. One was how you cite things, and that would be if it's approved. So I'm going to start with my point number 2, which is TGLs. One point I made was there are already 3 on North Winter Street. There's one around the corner on Union, which might as well be on North Winter. I mean, it's just a stone's throw from North Winter, the Union Street place. So that makes maybe 4. I don't know if there's 3 or 4. Okay. Then around the corner, you're asked to approve one tonight or consider one tonight on Fairfield Pike, which is right around the corner from here. It's like down about 5 houses from me, and then take a right on Fairfield, and it's a few houses down on Fairfield. So Winter Street is becoming a place to site Airbnbs, and we just have quite a few, and I'm concerned about the density of that. and I like it that you are too. And the question of what counts as proximity, like, do we have standards? And my concern, I think throughout the piece I wrote was, let's not be in such a hurry that we're approving things and making up standards on the fly after they're approved, and then it becomes precedent. Like, how about setting the standards? And I know you guys did a lot last week to set standards, and I really appreciate that. So, so that is one concern, was the how densely do we want these places in our neighborhood? Right now, my neighborhood is pretty dense with, I would say, 3 to 4, and then one coming up possibly around the corner, and then Jill's. So that would make 5 by my count. And I'm confused because of the newspaper report. I wasn't on any of these meetings until tonight, but the newspaper report says a landlord outside of Yellow Springs can no longer have an Airbnb or a TGL on the property where they do not live. So did you say there's is there a date when that takes effect? I heard somebody mention June 3rd.
I think it's June 3rd, yes.
Okay. If it is such a good idea, why are we waiting until June 3rd?
Okay, we're at 3 minutes.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, she just reminded you that we're at 3 minutes of your comments, so.
I have 3 minutes?
No, you've already used 3 minutes.
How many am I allowed?
Well, I asked you to try to shoot for about 3 minutes, so if you could.
I didn't hear that. I'm very sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Nope, that's right.
So 3 minutes would not give me time to go over the quality of life issues that this proposal raises. But there's a couple other things. I just saw that driveway, for example. I just was able to access that stuff tonight, all the detail of the proposal. Does the driveway, is that allowed to not be in the setback? My point number 1 on my statement to you guys was, let's apply all the rules. Let's not give variances. Let's just give the rule. You know, I leave it up to you guys to apply all the zoning and the setbacks and all that stuff, because I don't even know that stuff or understand it. So this driveway looks like it is getting closer and closer to my property. It's not within the 20 feet supposedly that the structure's going to be. The outside stairway that's going to be used to access the upstairs apartment, does that have to be in her 20-foot? According to the proposal, the structure is going to be 20 feet from the property line. But what about that outside stairway? Does that protrude into that 20-foot border? So the stairway has to end before the 20-foot border?
Yeah, I believe Denise Swinger spoke to those types of issues when she gave her report earlier, I believe, didn't you, Denise?
Yeah, so the facing North Winter Street, it's a front yard setback of 20 feet. The rear yard is considered where Judas' property line is.
No, the rear yard?
For Miss Polly, that's her rear yard.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's 10 feet and 5 feet from the side where was it Laura, I believe, that just talked. Because this is an accessory structure, it's not a primary dwelling. Accessory structures can be 5 feet from side yards and 10 feet from rear yards.
So where will it be from my yard, the side yard?
Well, I mean, that was up on the, it can be as close as 10 feet.
That's the farthest edge of the structure, can be 10 feet, right?
But where will it be? What is her proposal?
I can speak to it. It's 20 feet is my proposal.
And the zoning people allow, so if her stairwell protruded, the zoning people wouldn't be concerned?
It has, the setback, it has to be everything, the entire structure, whether it's the roof eave, a balcony, a stairwell, has to be at least 10 feet from the rear and 5 feet from the side. But she is saying, and we don't have Raven, I don't want to.
Well, I appreciate that it's 20 feet. It looks like 20 feet from the drawings I have seen. But the driveway, is the driveway part of the structure?
She's actually going to have it be 20 feet away.
Right. And I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay.
Is the driveway part of the structure?
And Judy, we are going to have to move on, okay?
What about the driveway?
Really quick about the driveway can be 3 feet away from her lot line. But the structure itself has to be 20 feet back from your side of the abutting line. So her driveway can be 3 feet away, and it's more than that right now.
Well, if I'm done speaking, like you need, I understand you need to move on. Please, has everybody who's going to make a decision, have you all?
They still have to vote yet after the public hearing.
Yeah, and just to alleviate Judith's concerns is we are going to go back, if this is approved, and see if we can go to a BZA hearing, which would allow her to put the driveway right in front of her structure, and she wouldn't have to put it at an angle. So that would be not impact on that side. There'd not be an impact. Okay.
All right.
Can I talk to them? Is it my turn?
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Rose.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was asking.
Yes, no, it's all right. I just couldn't find you on my screen. I heard a voice, but didn't see a face.
Hey, so I there's going to be I have a question. There's going to be a separate vote for the accessory dwelling unit and for the transient guest lodging. Is that true?
I'd have to ask advice on that. Do we need to do separate votes on each of those, or can we approve them as one vote?
Speaking as one member of Planning Commission, I was going to ask that exact question, okay. And I was actually going to ask to divide it into two motions, which I'm prepared to make.
Yeah, I was just going to say if because this is a bigger issue that we haven't always done it that way, but we can.
Okay.
Separate.
Okay. So is there, I'm sorry, I forget this, but the conditional use for the accessory dwelling unit, are there any requirements for the owner occupying, or is there any owner occupying conditions on ADUs?
It doesn't go into effect until June 3rd. So we're still under the old rules.
No, for ADUs, not for TGLs.
No,
not at all. For some reason okay. No. I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Rose. Continuing with the public hearing, is there anybody else who would like to speak about this conditional use application?
I don't see anyone else with their hand up.
Okay, don't see anybody else. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll bring it back to Planning Commission. Thank you, everybody, for your comments and the information that you provided through the public hearing on this. So
I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
This would be to approve the application for an accessory dwelling unit with the condition that the applicant orient the garage door side of the garage toward North Winter Street and seek a variance through BZA to do that.
I can second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Were you able to get that written down, Judy? The motion?
Yes.
Okay.
And so this is only the ADU and.
Right,
Only
it's
the
just
ADU.
the
Okay.
ADU.
So yeah, the motion is to approve the application for the ADU with condition that the applicant orient the garage door towards North Winter and seek a BZA variance to do so.
Okay, any discussion of the motion? Okay. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes, Green,
Yes.
Amend,
No.
Curlis,
Yes.
Stiles,
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 4-1.
Okay. Okay, so that leaves the issue of the transient guest lodge.
Now, I'm prepared to make a motion. It would be for approval with several conditions, but maybe somebody else wants to make a different motion that might be more popular
Okay.
than my motion.
Well, could you just briefly list what your conditions
I
would be?
could.
Bob?
The condition, first of all, that we accept it with the conditions in the staff recommendation. There are a couple there, so they're in the report. And the next two are new, but I think they may be applicable to almost everyone we approve henceforth. I believe we need to require for TGL operation a designated outdoor smoking area on the property for guests that is no less than 15 feet from every property boundary. And the next condition is to establish a policy of quiet time for TGLs between this TGL between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m.
I guess my condition would be that it's 1/10 of a mile away from any other TGLs.
And
Linear
with,
mile.
and with what Sarah is requesting, then that would make it that we couldn't approve it. Is that correct? Okay.
Right. So her motion would be not just.
If I measured it right, which I don't know if I did or not.
Well, the thing to distinguish is that from a legal perspective, when you're making motions like that, you're reading something into the code that isn't there. In terms of, we had the discussion on proximity, it is not defined in the code. Now, if you were to make a motion to say that, we disapprove the applicant based on proximity, based on what staff has told us that there are structures that are 261 feet away, that's different from saying, I'm going to make a motion that it be 1/10 of a mile away when it's impossible for the applicant to comply with that condition. So you as planning commission members need to take that into account.
So I went and double checked Xenia's code. So we had issues with bail bonds, places, and commercial, tattoo establishments, sexually oriented businesses, and a couple other ones. And we eventually put it in the code that there was certain like 5,000 square linear feet.
Yeah. All I'm saying is,
prior to that, we did it by this is our motion based upon past precedents that it's within this set linear distance from another establishment until that code was rewritten in, I think, 2016. So in that way, there's a heuristic there that's clear and stated instead of it kind of being wishy-washy for everybody involved.
well, planning commission can take that up as a recommendation to council to change the code. On this application, as solicitor, all I'm saying is you should not say that the applicant is given a condition that's impossible to comply with.
Right.
So you want me to say I'd vote no because of the proximity and yeah.
Right.
But if I made a motion, it would be I'd make a motion to deny based on proximity to existing
Two other
TGLs.
existing TGLs. And that would be, that would be consistent with the language of the code.
Okay.
So the noise thing, what are the current noise regulations
We have two times. We have daytime and nighttime, and they vary by decimal. So in the residential area, the noise.
Limit is 65 decibels from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. And it is, I believe, 55 decibels, maybe 45 decibels for the remaining hours overnight.
Thank you, Raven.
Any other questions or concerns or discussion? Huh? All right.
Stephen, I don't know if you answer the hours, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
It's 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
for residential.
11.
Raven, you're saying 11?
Yes, it's 11. I apologize.
Okay. And Laura, you had suggested 9?
Yeah, 11, I mean, seems maybe a little bit late for these residential areas, but, you know.
So we need to make one more motion here. So who's?
Yes.
All right, somebody.
Sorry, actually, it was 10 p.m. So that would be only an hour difference.
Okay, then forget about
10
it.
p.m. to 7 a.m.
Okay.
is 45.
Yeah. So forget about it. So I guess, well, let's see if this will die for a lack of a second or get voted down. So I'll make a motion to approve the transient guest lodging permit on the conditions of the staff recommendation. Number 1, we accept those. Number 2, and require a designated outdoor smoking area on property for TGL guests that is no less than 15 feet from every property boundary.
I'm sorry, Steve, Steve
All right.
is talking, but he's muted.
I'll second that.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded with, Judy, could you read back the motion, please?
Okay, so Curlis has moved approval of the transient guest lodging permit, and I'm assuming this is for the accessory dwelling unit?
Yeah, I'm sorry, in the accessory dwelling unit, right.
Okay, so she's moved approval for the transient guest permit for the ADU with the staff conditions that the applicant must obtain and provide to the zoning code administrator an MTFR inspection for the ADU prior to its use as a TGL, that the applicant is advised that the ADU has to be finished and TGL use must commence 1 year from the date of Planning Commission's approval. And then she's got some requirements regarding requests for extension there, that a designated outdoor smoking area on the property no less than 15 feet from all property boundaries be provided.
For the TGL guests.
For TGL guests.
Okay. Any discussion of the motion? Questions about it? No? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes, Green,
Yes.
Stiles,
No.
MN,
No.
Curlis,
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 3-2.
Now, the question I have remaining on this is that her application, she was interested in having transient guest lodge both for ADU as well as for the main dwelling. Do we need to deal with the main dwelling, or are we just going to leave the transient guest lodge application approval for the ADU?
I'm looking just at was it just for in the ADU?
I believe that's what the motion was.
Oh, I just did the ADU.
From a logistics standpoint, the Planning Commission can address that now since the application refers to both. And under the current code, there's no restriction from doing it in both. So the Planning Commission can address that right now.
Okay.
As far as whether PGL use will be permitted in the main dwelling.
Okay. Okay. So we're done with this one then.
And can I just?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask for.
Who's speaking?
Judy,
go ahead.
please go.
I
Jill, go-
point of order. Do you need a second public hearing, or was one public hearing on both matters sufficient, Brianne?
One public hearing on both matters is sufficient. It was brought up, it was addressed that she wanted to do both. But Planning Commission should also say on the record whether or not the use of the main dwelling is approved or disapproved as a TGL. And again, the factors are different because, you know, it's not a new structure.
Right. Good. And Jill, what were you going to say?
I was just asking for clarification,
Okay.
which Brianne just addressed.
Okay.
I am not going to make that motion.
Well, all right, so I'll make a motion that we, following the staff recommendations, that we vote on whether the main structure can become transient guest lodging.
You've got to move to approve it or to deny it. You've got to,
Move to approve.
okay.
Okay, I'll second that. Is there any discussion of that motion? Would the clerk call the roll?
Can I just
I'm
clarify
sorry.
something? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So if this does not pass, she has to get that ADU built and the transient guest lodging within 1 year from tonight, or she has to go under the new rules and she won't be able to do the transient guest lodging at all. Correct?
Correct.
Well, she can ask for an extension of it for a year, right?
But my understanding is that we go by you would extend it based on the new rules.
You can consider that it was issued under the old rules, but again, this is a very fact-specific scenario. You can consider that it was issued under the old rules, but the new rules are now in effect, and that she is a non-owner or non-operator occupied. But because it is forward-looking in a hypothetical situation, say she were to become an operator occupant. In that case, if she was to apply as an operator occupant for that ADU or for the main structure for that matter, then everything I said just goes out the window because that one specific fact changed. So that's why in terms of forward-looking statements, we have to go by what code is in effect at the time the Planning Commission decision is made.
Right. So basically, if she doesn't get this built within a year, then she still lives in California.
Yeah, she can still apply for an extension because again, the permission is if it's granted, would be today's date.
Right. But okay. But you're going to base it on the rules that exist as of June.
Planning Commission may base it on the rules that exist at the time.
But they could
make
also
their
consider it
decision.
grandfathered in too. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's the thing. If she doesn't begin the use under the law, it's not technically grandfathered in because the use hasn't begun yet. Unlike others that are grandfathered in because they are in active use.
Okay.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
I'm really not interested in having two separate TGL permits. I'm not. I'm sincerely saying that. If the ADU ends up not happening for whatever reason, the reason I'm seeking one also for the main residence is that I want to be able to secure it for at least one or the other. So I just want to put that out there so that my intentions are known.
Okay. All right. Oh,
I'm sorry,
yeah, Judy.
just quick question. Can she seek to transfer the permit if she's unable to build the unit, stays with that dwelling or with that property?
Under the new rules, it would stay with the property. Under the new,
Nothing.
but under our current rules, it's based on the structure.
So she could come back under the new rules if she hasn't been able to build the TGL and ask to the property as a whole?
Again, it's one of those things that if she was to come back under the new rules and say, please apply the rules as they are now, And again, that's assuming that council does not alter the rules further within 1 year, which is why I'm hesitant to make such a forward-looking statement as far as what could or would happen.
And it's not on our
From a legal perspective, Planning Commission can take into account what might happen in the future. And that's within its purview because it's planning. That's what you do. But again, we can only say what the code is now, what the code is going to be as of June 3rd, and we can't predict necessarily what might happen within the next 12 months.
There be a condition that the TGL on the main residence can only be used if the one on the ADU is not. That way it puts a cap on it to 1.
You can request that Planning Commission consider that and with
what kind of precedence is that going to start though?
I think if she requires the condition, that's not necessarily setting a precedent. Is that correct, Brian?
No, if she requests that as a condition and says she agrees to it voluntarily, that's not necessarily setting a precedent.
And it all is mute in about 3 weeks anyway, 3 or 4 weeks anyway, because a non-operator occupied won't be able to apply, and they're only going to be allowed 1 TGL per property after June 3rd. So she's just kind of advancing it.
But what if like a grandfathered one comes in and says we did it for this occasion?
Well, that would be again a hypothetical grandfathered one. Grandfathering applies to active use.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's get through this.
Could the clerk read back the?
Well, you need to either take that additional condition into account.
Well, what's the motion that we have so far?
So you've moved to approve the transient guest lodging permit for the main dwelling with the staff recommendations. Period. So
would it be better if I rescind that and make a motion to approve with the staff recommendations and the condition that there isn't a TGL on the
there isn't an ADU
or an AD, yeah, like that.
You could move to amend your motion.
Yeah, I will amend my motion.
Well, move to amend your motion.
Oh, I just make it. Oh Lord. Let's just go with a new motion because I'm
okay.
Okay, yeah, new motion.
Okay.
Okay, so your new motion is to approve a transient guest lodging in the main dwelling with staff conditions and with the condition that only 1 transient guest lodging can exist on that property. Is that what we're saying? Is that correct, Jill?
That's my intention. Okay. Yes. However, it's best wording, even if you want to say that it's at owner's request in order to satisfy your other concerns, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you add the at owner's request?
And exist.
And I will second that.
Owner's request. To Doden. Okay. So are we clear on what's been?
Yes.
Can I go ahead and call the roll?
Everybody clear? She can go ahead and call the roll.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Green.
Yes.
Curlis.
No.
Amend.
No.
Stiles.
No.
Doden.
Yes.
That motion fails 3-2.
Okay. All right. I think we are done then with the first of the conditional use applications, first of the public hearings. Thank everybody for participating. And very complicated subject, and hopefully a lot of what we've talked about during the first one of these might help us as we go through the next few. So, all right. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
All right, thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Jill.
Okay, the second conditional use application, Elizabeth Giss has submitted a conditional use application for transient guest lodge at 324 West Davis Street. So Denise, could you give the staff report? And again, everybody, please hold your questions till Denise is finished.
Yes, this is for a transient guest lodging in a single family dwelling, an existing single family dwelling. The applicant bought the property in July of 2020. She intends to rent out the house when she's out of town, which is maybe 3 to 4 days a month. She's got 2 off-street parking spots available. And I misstated in my report the additional parking space requirement being for the single family dwelling, but the additional parking space requirement is for an ADU, which this is not, because she intends to rent the primary dwelling, and there is not an ADU within the dwelling like a mother-in-law suite. So the 2 parking spaces that she has does meet the requirements of the Transit Guest Lodging Code. However, I think Planning Commission should be sure that there will be 2 parking spaces available when she is out of town. And then there have been 3 letters submitted from neighbors on both sides of her property, and then 1 person down the street from the property. This is a very small little neighborhood. It's a West Davis Street is a dead end street as far as for vehicle traffic. So it's a very small little neighborhood. So both 3 of the neighbors have submitted letters, and all 3 were in opposition. And that's the end of my report.
Okay. Members of Planning Commission, any questions, concerns at this point?
So this falls under the an owner occupied TGL.
Yep.
Okay.
Can we limit the number of days it's used as a TGL?
We, that was proposed, that was discussed at Planning Commission level and council level, and they did not choose to do that.
There's nothing in the code that says Planning Commission has the authority to impose daily caps.
In this code or in the new version, they didn't do that either.
But
Except
again,
for the general conditions that would make it consistent with the character of the neighborhood.
Right. If Planning Commission specifically makes a finding based on the general conditions of the neighborhood, but as far as daily caps, you're going to have to tie that somehow, because there's nothing in the code that says what a daily cap should be for keeping with the general character of a neighborhood.
as with the last hearing, however, you can do that at the request of the petitioner, correct?
You can do it at the request of the petitioner. And if neighbors express concerns about the character of the neighborhood and say, we would like to limit it to 1 weekend a month or something to that effect, Planning Commission can base its conditions that it imposes on neighbor concerns.
Denise, can you say something more about there needs to be 2 off-street parking spaces for this property for TGL?
Yes, because that's what the requirement is for the primary dwelling. And there's no mother-in-law suite or accessory dwelling unit within the structure. That would require more.
And there are 2 now. There are 2 now.
And there are 2 now,
Okay.
yes.
Any other questions or concerns from members of the Planning Commission? Right. Elizabeth, I see you're here. Let's see, can we get you unmuted? Do you have any questions, or would you like to speak to anything that's come up so far? You're on mute right now, so let's see.
Oh, there
you go. Yeah.
Hi there. Thanks, everyone. I just have maybe 1 or 2 quick things to note. We do live here, and so I have a very strong interest in making sure that the people who are staying here are trustworthy. And so I've made it so that I would like you on Airbnb, you can make it so that only people with 5-star reviews whose identity has been approved or like verified can book. And so I would like to do that so that it's only people who have a history of staying at Airbnbs successfully. And I would note, I've heard some talk in Yellow Springs that Airbnbs raise affordable housing issues. And I just wanted to note that this does make it more affordable for me to live in Yellow Springs. It ends up that it's a little bit of a stretch for us, and we've faced some unexpected costs. So if that is a concern, this actually helps. And I would like to have no smoking anywhere on the property. That was like buried in, and by the way, I'm so sorry that I let people stay here before it was approved. I just didn't know the rules. But that was buried in a list of house rules that I didn't want any smoking on the property. So I would note that very prominently, that there would be no smoking anywhere on the property, inside or out. And I do have several people. I have one person in Yellow Springs, and then another person in Dayton, and another person nearby that can address anything when I'm not in town. So I'm reachable 24/7 by cell, but I have 3 people that are kind of on call if anything comes up. So I think that's all. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
And is that the no smoking? Is that why the person was smoking by their car?
Probably. I was just going to say, she probably isn't aware of that letter. I don't know.
Okay.
That was one of the letters that came in from the neighbors.
Yeah, that was among the letters that were coming in was concerned about somebody smoking, I believe, close to their property. Is that right, Denise, if I'm remembering right?
They were standing in the public right away by their car,
right,
instead of on our property.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, yes, Elizabeth.
You're muted.
You're muted yet.
And
there you go. Oh, now you're back to mute again.
there we go.
Yeah.
So they were smoking in my driveway, but it was near the person's home. And so that was disturbing to him. And I might note that my neighbors requested, Tom and Holly Underwood, who wrote the long letter of protest, requested that I put up blinds, and I've ordered blinds so that maybe that will make them, I want to address their concerns. So I've done that, and we'll put them up soon.
Okay, any other comments or concerns by members of the Planning Commission before I open the public hearing? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open the public hearing for the conditional use application. If there's any members of the public attending the meeting who would like to speak, either wave or use the raise your hand button, which I believe is up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. And we'll give you a few seconds to see if anybody's going to chime in here. I see Raven looking things over.
I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay. All right, not hearing any calls to participate in the public hearing. So we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we can bring it back to Planning Commission to consider this application then. So
I'd like to make a motion to deny based upon proximity to other TGLs.
I'll second the motion.
okay. Been moved and seconded to deny the application based on proximity to other transient guest lodges in the area. Could you put that map up, Raven? The Exhibit B. And so you can see the sun is the proposed one, and the houses are the existing TGLs, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion of the motion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Okay, this is on the motion to deny. Amend.
Yes.
Curlis.
No.
Green.
No.
Stiles.
No.
Doden.
No.
All right, so the motion fails.
I make a motion to approve the TGL with two conditions. One, at the owner's request, it's a maximum of 4 days, nights per month. And that there be a designated smoking area at least 15 feet from every property boundary. And the reason I say that is if you can keep smoking out, but we don't want you to say, if they are going to smoke, sending them out into the street, right? So have an area if you're going to allow it at all. And that's my motion, those two conditions.
I second it.
Okay, so it's been moved in second.
I have a question. I don't know.
Elizabeth, did you have a question?
And so that's saying that if I allow smoking, there thus must be a designated area, but I'm allowed not to have smoking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any discussion of Laura's motion? Can I have the clerk?
Because I missed that. So you request that it's limited to 4 nights per month at different.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so to read that back, Carlos has moved to approve with two conditions that at the owner's request, the TGL is limited to operation 4 nights of the month, and that a designated smoking area at least 15 feet from all property boundaries be put in place if smoking is permitted.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, with the clerk call the roll, please.
Yes. Stiles.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Amend.
No.
Curlis.
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
All right. Thank you, everybody. All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay. All right. We will move on to, I guess, we switched numbers 3 and 4, so we'll leave them switched and we'll go ahead and start with what appears on your agendas as number 4. Jonathan Dalmal, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly or not. If I mispronounce it, I apologize. And Logan Ginsburg submitted a conditional use application for transient guest lodge at 437 Suncrest Drive. Denise, would you go over the staff report, please?
Yeah, this is an accessory dwelling unit that is within a single family dwelling. This property was previously approved for a transient guest lodging, but the owner has since sold it and the new owner would like to continue the TGL. It's a downstairs suite with its own private entrance and bathroom, and it is not separately metered. So it does meet the rules where it is tied to the primary dwelling. The applicant has 4 off-street parking spots available. They will be living on site when they're using this as a TGL. And they did go ahead and get a Miami Township Fire and Rescue inspection, and they found no violations. The abutting and adjacent neighbors were also sent notification letters, and there were no opposition letters filed with the Clerk of Council. And that's the end of my report.
Okay.
This is Aurelia Blake's old house.
Correct.
Yeah.
Members of the Planning Commission, have any questions or concerns about this one? Okay. See, are Jonathan or Logan, are they here?
Yes, they are here.
They're probably muted.
Hi, folks. Just got unmuted. Happy to be here. Yes, you've got both me, Jonathan, and Logan here.
Hi.
Okay. Okay.
Is there any way to see video or not?
Begin.
Opening video now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, folks.
Ah, there you are. Okay. Okay. Do you guys have any questions or any comments that you'd like to make?
Really happy to discuss with the neighbors. We're actually setting up off-street parking such that we'd be amenable to host actually at least three plus parking spots off street. Yeah, we 4 at least. Yeah.
4 to 6 easily.
Yeah, I mean, measuring it out, we've got the driveway and we're looking at setting a off-street parking only for the Airbnb location itself. In discussing with the neighbors, that's kind of what we understood was most important, making sure that we do have off-street parking.
All right. If no members of the Planning Commission have any questions or concerns right now, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for the conditional use application for 437 Sunset. So if any members of the public are out there, oh, I'm sorry.
Suncrest.
Suncrest.
Suncrest. We used to have a sunset.
Sunset. It's already late.
Right.
Suncrest. And if any members of the public would like to speak to this, either electronically raise your hand in the upper right-hand corner or wave or yodel or something, and we'll try to get you on screen here. I'll give you a few seconds to respond. Okay. Seeing anything, Raven?
No, feel free to turn your video on and flail your arms around.
Oh, yep. Okay, not seeing anything. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission.
I make a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny based upon proximity to the other TGL.
Is there a second to Sarah's motion?
Yeah. Hey, we're happy to chat with Sarah as well. I think we're the only folks on the block, Sarah.
Hold up. This is just, we're back at the table now. So if you could mute, please.
Okay. Is there a second to Sarah's motion? Does not seem to be a second. So, Laura, were you going to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve with one condition, that is, if they allow smoking on the property, there be a designated smoking area at least 15 feet from every property boundary.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the application with the recommendation or the with the addition of smoking restrictions. Judy, could you read it back?
Yes, the motion is to approve with the condition that if smoking is permitted, a designated area is set for this that is at least 15 feet from all property boundaries.
Okay, any discussion of the motion? Okay, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes, Green.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Amend.
No.
Stiles.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 4-1.
Okay. Okay, so now we'll go back to what was number 3 on the agenda. And this is Josh Myers. Is that correct, Denise?
That's correct.
Okay. Conditional use application for accessory dwelling unit and transient guest lodge at 202 Fairfield Pike. Would you give the staff a report, please?
Sure. Ashley and Josh Myers purchased the property in December of 2020. It's located in the RA Low Density Residential District. The property it's a large property. It measures 17,500 square feet. The primary dwelling measures 1,200 square feet, which allows for an ADU maximum size of 792 square feet. There's an existing garage which currently measures 576 square feet, and their plan is to expand the depth by 6 feet, 7¾ inches for a proposed size of 745 square feet, which will meet the zoning requirements. The height of the ADU will be 22 feet 1 inch, which also meets the height requirement of the 24 feet maximum for an accessory structure that has an ADU. With the increased size of the accessory structure, the lot coverage will be 11.24%, which is well below the 35% maximum allowance. The expansion on the existing garage meets the zoning code's rear yard setback requirement of 10 feet and side yard setback requirement of 5 feet for accessory structures. It is located on a corner as well. The driveway, which is already existing, length is also compliant. It measures over 25 feet from the property line already. The applicant indicated on the site plan that there will be room for 4 off-street parking spaces. Abutting and adjacent neighbors were notified, and staff did have 1 inquiry, but no opposition letters were filed with the clerk of council. And that is my report.
Thank you. Bring it back to Planning Commission then. Any questions or concerns about this one?
Where do they live?
It's at Fairfield. It's at the corner of Fairfield Pike and.
No, where do the Myers live? Are they, because they list their address in Columbus?
They're planning to move here, so I'll let them speak to that. I mean, I'll let the chair have them speak.
Okay, yeah, Josh, are you here?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Did you hear the question?
Yeah, thanks for having us on the agenda, and we really appreciate it. My wife, Ashley, and I, we currently live in Columbus.
Okay, so are you planning on moving?
We do not have any immediate plans, but we would eventually, when our kids are of school age, like to consider moving to Yellow Springs.
So you're renting the house now, or how's that working?
Yes, we have a renter, a long-term renter in the existing house.
Okay. Are you planning on continuing long-term rental on the house then?
We are.
Any other questions for Josh?
So the TGL is only for the accessory dwelling. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Am I correct that the nearest TGL is about 850 feet away?
The one on Fairfield Pike that you guys recently approved, Brittany Baum.
I think it is Fairfield Pike right there, right at Bear Acres. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no other comments or questions from members of Planning Commission, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for the conditional use application for the accessory dwelling unit and transient guest lodging at 202 Fairfield Pike. And once again, if you'd like to comment about this, please raise your hand electronically by hitting the button, or wave or yell or something to get our attention. I'll give you a few seconds to chime in. Seeing anything, Raven? Okay, not seeing any public comments, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to the Planning Commission.
I just wanted to clarify again, this will be another case if he is non-operator occupied, that if it isn't completed within 1 year from today, he would be subject to the new rules, which would disallow the TPL.
I move to deny.
Okay, we got two different things going on here. So there's the ADU and then there's the TGL. So are we separating that out?
Oh. Yeah. I
And so you
mean,
move,
I guess it's a question for the applicant. If
okay.
he can't do the TGL, does he want the ADU?
Josh, would you like to speak to that? Did you hear, did you hear the question, Josh?
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted, right? Okay.
So the question was, if the TGL is not approved, would we still like to build the ADU? Is that correct?
Correct.
I think we would come back with a separate submission. Right now, the basis of our ADU is also approval of the TGL.
Thank you. I think I'd like to make a motion justice to the TGL, please. I make a motion to deny.
To deny the TGL?
Right.
There is a second to Laura's motion.
Not very popular.
Okay. They're saying no second.
It dies for lack of a second.
Yes. So Denise, you were wondering if we were going to do this separately or do the,
Well, I mean, somebody can make a motion for both or together,
right,
or they can do it separately. Yeah.
Right.
So I'll make a motion for the TGL and the accessory dwelling unit. And are there other staff recommendations?
I'm assuming you would want to approve those with the two listed staff recommendations. Is
Yes, yes, with the staff recommendations.
everybody see the staff recommendations at the bottom of page 4? Okay, I'll
Probably include we should probably include the no smoking within 15 feet of the property line to be consistent.
You want to include that language, Stephen?
I'm fine with that, yes.
Okay, include the smoking language. And I will second that then with the smoking language added. Would the clerk please read back the motion then?
Okay, the motion to approve the application as submitted for both transient guest lodging and accessory dwelling units with both staff conditions and the condition that if smoking is permitted, there's a designated area set aside that's at least 15 feet from all property boundaries.
Okay, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes. Stiles.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Curlis.
No.
Amend.
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 4-1.
Okay, so we've gotten now through. Thank you very much, Josh, for being here and answering the questions.
Yes, thank you very much.
And we've gotten through 1 through 4 now, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go on to conditional use application number 5. Are they here?
Yes, she's here.
Theodora? Okay.
Yeah.
Theodora Stefan? Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, or Stefan? With permission from Antioch College, it submitted a conditional use application for construction of a single-family dwelling on East Center College. Denise, would you give the staff report, please?
So the property being located in the Educational Institutions District requires that single-family dwellings be conditionally approved. She plans to build a 4,000 square foot single-family dwelling as her primary residence with a large commercial kitchen for culinary classes and special dinner events. She's proposing to have 12 to 16 days or events per year with classes held during daytime hours, preferably on Fridays, but also some Saturdays. Commercial classroom activities, the greenhouse and gardens that she wants to have are permitted uses in the educational institutions district. So there doesn't need to be an action taken on that specifically. The single family residence meets the setback and lot coverage requirements for the educational institution district. It's a very large lot. It measures 35,044 square feet with a lot width of 222.25 feet. There's a village alleyway bordering the western portion of the property for about 150 feet. She plans to return to the Planning Commission and of course on to council for a lot split and a rezoning to make the western portion of the property where that alleyway is, that area closest to Xenia Avenue, to rezone that to RC, high density residential district. And she's showing here future single family residents and talking with her. She also might even have an interest in making that a 2-family. Under the RC zoning, those would be automatically permitted. The reason for this is because in the educational institutions district, you're not allowed to have accessory dwelling units. And she was going to have an accessory dwelling unit for the chefs that she had that were coming in for these presentations. But in the zoning lot split and rezoning, the property borders the residential C district to the west, north, or west, east, and south, and the educational institutions district to the north, which would not make it a spot zoning. So she will be coming back. We just wanted to let you know that ahead of time in case there are any questions about her future plans. She anticipates bringing that map amendment and the minor subdivision application to the June or July Planning Commission meeting. And that's pretty much all I have. She is here too.
Okay. Thank you very much, Denise. Do any members of the Planning Commission have any questions or concerns that Denise might answer right now? Susan?
I know that right now is not where this would be considered, but I'm assuming that because this is a conditional use, that parking will be considered.
Yes. When she applies for that, she's going to need, I think that might be in my, report. I just didn't mention it, that a parking plan would need to be submitted because of the classes. And that would be off-street.
And Denise, the 16, does that come from the code somewhere, or is that just?
That was from her.
Just from the application. Okay.
Yeah. Thea, would you like to speak to this or describe it a little bit more, or welcome to our meeting? You're on mute right now. Oh, there you go. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me. And I'm really excited about moving back to the area. Basically it's all conceptual right now, and I'm thrilled to be in the center of town with my primary residence. And I wanted to continue the culinary aspect of my career, and therein lies the opportunity to build out commercial kitchen space and have a place where people can gather. And I think as far as the largesse of the house, I don't think it's going to be that big at all. My architect kind of plunked that in there, and that's pretty grand for me. But anyway, it is pretty much as Denise described it, and keeping things simple and sweet so we can all move on. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Hey, members of the Planning Commission have any questions? It sounds like a very interesting project.
Is there any relationship with Antioch College? Is that, or would you want to explain?
I'm buying the lot from Antioch, and historically, I'm told that the property itself was a farm. It's never had a structure on it. And I plan to put a little food, what we call a food forest, and permaculture, gardening style, and focus on cherry trees and completely edible gardens.
Okay. So the classes aren't for Antioch College students?
No, they
Okay.
could be. Yeah. no.
Okay. All right.
Not-
Thank you.
But it'd be classes that would be open to the public or available to the public?
Yes, of course.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for this conditional use application for the property on East Center College Street. If anybody in the public would like to comment, please electronically raise your hand or wave. Let us know you're out there. Not seeing or hearing anything. Raven seems to have disappeared, at least video-wise, from my screen, but
Yeah, I have nothing.
okay. All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to Planning Commission.
I make a motion that we approve the conditional use for single-family dwelling and with the condition that the applicant be required to submit a stormwater mitigation and parking plan when seeking a zoning permit for new construction.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I think it's very clearly worded. Everybody have the wording of the motion with any discussion of the motion? Okay, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes, amend.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Stiles.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right. Thank you very much, Theo, for being here, and good luck. All right, that gets us to the last of our public hearings. Cresco Labs, 1130 Springs Way, out at the CBE Commerce Park. Cresco has submitted a site plan review for the purpose of expanding their medical marijuana cultivation and processing plant. Denise, would you like to please talk about the packet?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit lengthier than the other ones, but. So Cresco is requesting a 5-year master plan approval to allow for a phased expansion of their existing medical marijuana cultivation and processing facility. Because of strict state of Ohio regulations of the medical marijuana industry, Cresco is requesting this phased plan approval in order to meet the state's deadlines. And they can probably go into that a little bit more if you would like to hear from them. The final build out will total 144,724 square feet with no changes to the previously approved PUD or the underlying zoning of the I-1 mixed industrial district. This is located at the northwestern edge of the village's Commerce Park, also known as the Center for Business and Education. Their property is 8.226 acres. The Cresco received originally, just to give you a little history, received conditional use approval from the Planning Commission in November of 2017. And it was for medical marijuana cultivation and processing under the categories of greenhouse nursery and medical labs. And this use has not changed. The Cresco expansion will be a phased-in project, with phase 1 being the 24,300 square foot section at the east, and as well as the 70,740 square foot west addition. So they're going to be building those as phase 1 together. Then phase 2 is going to be a renovation of the existing building of 49,670 square feet. The existing cultivation and processing plant consists of 2 buildings. It's a 1-story slab on grade processing head house and a 1-story steel grove building with a glass roof. The existing building measures 26 feet 6 inches in height and is well below the maximum building height of 40 feet. The new buildings are going to be the same or maybe a couple feet higher as new grow rooms need a clearance of 24 feet on the inside. The two additions also meet the front yard setback of 20 feet, the side yard setback of 10 for a total of 25, and the rear yard setback of 25, as indicated on the site plan by the dashed lines. The Cresco Labs proposed building expansion also meets the lot coverage requirements, which is 70% in the industrial I-1 mixed use district. The zoning code defines the lot coverage as that part of the lot that's occupied by buildings or structures expressed as a percentage, including accessory buildings or structures, but not including parking lots. So with that acreage of 8.226, 70% being 250,828 square feet, and the expansion being 144,724, they meet that lot coverage requirement. They're well underneath that for the size of the property. Regarding noise, Cresco previously indicated the noise level should not exceed 55 dBA at the lot line. This was based on the sound power level of 87 dBA for the rooftop HVAC system that they had installed previously, and staff would review this again when their final plans are submitted. Regarding lighting, security lighting is a requirement for this facility, and lighting will be designed to minimize glare on the adjacent properties. Cresco recognizes the village's concern with light spill from the glass roof design, which is evident in the winter months, as we all know, when the days are shorter. Cresco previously had expressed in writing from council to keep the lights on for a set period of time in the winter months. Council did approve that, but to alleviate this issue in this new expansion, they've indicated that the existing greenhouse structures will be remodeled with a new roof system that does not leak grow light into the sky at all. So they will submit a lighting plan, which will be a requirement when they apply for their zoning permit. Regarding stormwater, Cresco intends to use the low impact design methods that we've worked on for a year or more, which is a recent update to our subdivision regulations. The village's civil engineer did take a quick look at this and said, as long as the release rate follows our village regulations, he's fine with that. We won't know that though until the final stormwater calculations are given to us. They currently have a detention pond, as you can see there, that stormwater detention to the east, which depending on the areas of discharge, that runoff directs to a perforated tile that allows the water to slowly drain into the adjacent fields as well. Part of this low impact design is that they're gonna use bioswales and rain gardens. And they've got those in locations to the east as well. Let's see, regarding parking, the Planning Commission previously approved a modification to Cresco's parking requirements that allowed parking at the front of the property per section 125403D of the PUD requirements. So also part of the PUD requirements is that for every 1,000 square feet of gross floor space, there's to be 2 parking spaces, which would be a total of 288. But with the new subdivision regulations and the village's goal of decreasing impervious surface areas that obviously cause additional stormwater runoff, staff requested information from Cresco on their projected employee numbers in addition to shift scheduling. It's important also to take into consideration that the square footage of the greenhouse area, as Cresco anticipated needing only 2 to 3 employees for their greenhouse operation in their original approval. So they anticipate parking for guests and employees to be a maximum of 219 spaces. This site plan shows 199 spaces for vehicles, 8 for motorcycles, as well as a location for bike racks. The amount of spaces take into consideration the multiple shift change overlaps as well. They currently have about 10% of their employees that carpool or walk, bike, or use motorcycles. So although they feel it's a little bit difficult for them to assess at this time, they're assuming a maximum 220 employees based on the existing and proposed expansion as is currently shown. Regarding landscaping, the current site plan shows green space buffers in these areas. Submission of a landscaping plan will be required. Regarding fire lanes, previously Cresco Labs consulted with the fire chief and a 20-foot wide fire lane was added to access the front and rear of the proposed buildings. A future fire lane was also included in the site plan around the perimeter of the property as Cresco expands their operations. Staff did reach out to Colin Altman, the chief of the Miami Township Fire and Rescue. He indicated the fire lane as proposed on the site plan meets the fire code requirements for fire apparatus access lanes. In the previous design, they had 2 barrier-free parking spaces along with a 5-foot wide sidewalk. The new plan shows 6 barrier-free parking spaces at the front entrance to the existing building. Regarding truck loading, previously there were 2 truck loading spaces. In the new design, the location of the 2 loading spaces has changed, with this area now containing parking for vehicles and an outdoor seating area for employees. One of the truck loading spaces is now located further west at the front of the building. The other location is really an indoor drive-in dock for enhanced security on the east side of the building. The zoning code requirement is 4 for this size of a facility, but Cresco would like to have flexibility with this because the majority of the proposed western addition is for cultivation. They stated there's very little product that is produced that requires multiple truck shipments. One truck dock they feel is adequate for this expanded facility, but they also would like the option to add 1 more loading dock for a total of 3 if they determine that it's needed. Regarding traffic circulation, Cresco was considering an entry point off East Eden Road for truck traffic, but staff advised against this due to the road width and conditions. They revised their plan with changes to the front entrance to allow maneuvering of trucks entering the facility. And I just say that because Cresco's always been very responsive to staff's requests. Existing utilities are underground, so any future expansion will also require underground utilities. They don't have any signage for their facilities. They, as you know, the property was previously a farm field. So tree plantings were per the zoning code requirements for the initial building site, with road frontage landscaping requiring a total of 9 canopy and understory trees. 5 trees are in the front yard setback area now, with 4 in front of the building. And Cresco at the time did follow our recommended tree list for these plantings. Regarding landscaping for the parking lot, the previous plan called for 45 parking spaces, including 2 barrier-free, with a future expansion plan for an additional 26 spaces. For this number of parking spaces, 5 to 7 canopy trees were required, and 8 trees were planted in the parking lot area, which met that requirement. They're proposing a total of 219 parking spaces, so an additional 13 trees are going to be required in the parking lot green space areas. And that covers it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any members of the Planning Commission have any questions or clarifications needed from Denise?
So, Denise, I have a question about the possible entrance onto Eden Road. That you were talking about that for trucks. If they have 220 employees and multiple shifts, are they going to have issues with everybody trying to get out at once onto Dayton Yellow Springs Road?
Well, the original plan was to, and we haven't discussed this with them, but the original plan was only going to be for trucks, and they were going to have a security area there where they would have to clear security in order to get in at that site. With the one of the things I discussed with the Public Works Director is that if they wanted to use that If they still wanted to have that as an access, they could go ahead and do that, but we would want that to only be for their employee vehicle traffic. So
Okay.
if they choose to do that, that might be a revision to that.
Okay. Okay.
It's not wide enough for truck traffic, and the concern that was raised by the Public Works Director is if they pull into that area and then they are denied access, then they would have to back out. That the road width there is not much.
Got it. Right.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about, every time you drive past a factory at shift change, it can create a lot of congestion, and it would be better to have that on Enon Road than on Dayton Yellow Springs, just because it's slower traffic. And so,
Yeah, well, it would be, I think that if in your motion tonight, just making sure so that wouldn't be considered something that was a major change, that you just add that as an option for vehicle traffic,
okay.
if they want to do that.
Is that road base adequate for that much traffic though? Isn't that just the old farm road that doesn't have a good underlayment?
Enon, I think, is it's not a farm road. I think it's just a regular, I don't know, village road.
Yeah, it's what you'd probably call, it's not an arterial road. It's a collector, I think. So, I mean, it would be fine for vehicle traffic.
Yeah, because that would be an extensive expense to the city if they had to redo that road more often.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the thing especially with big semis, that would be, and if you get down to the corner of West East Enon and Dayton Yellow Springs Road, we have major utilities there. That would be difficult to try to make a right turn.
Okay.
With the facade, because that's changing this to a very long building right at a main corridor coming into the village. Is the facade going to be broken up by any sort of facade treatment or high landscaping? So it's not just a giant wall?
There's what you call an architectural review committee, basically, which is the village council pretty much assigned me to be that. They have not discussed color schemes. They can't really have screening, but we'll try to break it up with some landscaping of trees. Maybe they could do something with the paint, but they have to have the security lighting, and they have to, they can't have anything screened.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the screening. It's just so there's not, one giant wall of one sort of facade treatment.
I'm sure we could ask them if they would.
I assume I think I saw, maybe, could we get the full view of participants back?
Denise, I have another question. If we're to allow up to 3 loading docks, does that need to be an additional condition of approval for the site plan?
Yes, I mean, because technically they're supposed to have 4, so we're actually allowing less.
Oh, up to 3.
Based on that size of a building, but they just don't need it.
And are they allowed to stage the parking lot so they don't have to do more spots than they need, right? And be required to do so if they only end up needing 150, they don't have an extra 50 lots and that much of a surface area that's been asphalt.
I would suggest that be put into the motion. And they probably, we need to ask them, but they'll probably be building out that parking lot in phases as well.
Yeah, I would just hate for them to require it and then not need it, and we do damage to the environment that we don't need to.
Now, who do we have here speaking for Cresco or for, okay. Christian? Okay. Hi.
Good evening.
If you'd like to, welcome to the meeting. If you'd like to speak to any of the questions or concerns that have kind of come up so far.
Yeah, I had a whole presentation, but Denise just took all the wind out of my.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
Denise does a great job. She's very thorough.
I'm left empty-handed. I do have a small presentation deck where we can get into some of the details, and I have our architect here as well, just to answer any questions you may have. Would it be all right if I shared my screen real quick?
Yeah, very quickly. Yep.
Great. Oh,
You're good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's make sure you guys can see that. Can everybody see that?
See it.
Okay, great. So again, my name is Christian Ficara. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs for Cresco Labs. And first and foremost, I just want to thank everybody for your time tonight and sticking around for us. Our architect is here, as I mentioned, Ted Donnell, who I'll hand it off to in just a moment. But I figured I would start and kick it off by telling you a little bit about who we are for those who don't know, and about why we're really excited at the prospect of expanding our facility in Yellow Springs and growing as a company. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention my personal excitement for this opportunity. I'm a proud Buckeye, and my fiance is a product of Centerville High School. So we come back quite often. This would be a great excuse to leverage some work trips to come back into town a little bit and see some family. But I digress. Let me get into a little bit here. So like I said, I'm sure many of you already know a little bit about us. This gives you a pretty good snapshot about our company. Just a few highlights. I won't run through every single one. We were founded in 2013. We're Chicago-based, and we employ 2,000 people, over 2,000 people across the country, where we're operational in 10 states. And of those, we have 18 cultivation and production facilities. So needless to say, this isn't our first rodeo, but I would say that one of the pillars to our success and our growth has been our commitment to work with local governments and community stakeholders like yourselves to ensure everything we're doing is compliant and meeting your standards, and that our presence really provides a net benefit to the community. That's super important for us, is ensuring people feel that our presence here is enhancing the quality of life for people in the neighborhoods that we serve. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about our existing facility in Yellow Springs, where we're starting from. We're located at 1130 Yellow Springs Way, and we built the facility in 2017. In 2018, we received our certificate of operation to cultivate, and that was followed by an approval to process earlier this year in 2021. The building's approximately 50,000 square feet right now, where we have roughly 73, 74 employees working on site, and as Denise mentioned, upwards of 44, 45 parking spaces. In terms of our economic impact, we pulled these numbers for this presentation specifically. In total, we have 79 employees in Yellow Springs. The average salary is well over $40,000, and that comes with a full suite of benefits. And further, since our first quarter of 2020, we've generated over $7.5 million in wholesale from this facility, which equates to roughly $1.1 million in local tax revenue for Yellow Springs. So given those promising numbers, we really felt that now was the time to not only reinvest in the facility, but it's time to double down on Yellow Springs. The village has been incredibly welcoming and wonderful to work with. We're keen on continuing our commitment of creating good local jobs, both direct and indirect jobs. So in terms of our vision, based on the insights of folks who are way better at math and market analysis than I am, we're targeting increasing our workforce by 33 people this year at the facility, which comes over to just over 40% of where we're at today. And then within a 5-year plan, we anticipate hiring over 140 people, totaling approximately 220 full-time employees. And finally, here are just some economic impact projections based on our proposed facility expansion. We have $40 million allocated for capital expenditures. And as you can see, as the market grows, we expect our wholesale production to be a major sales driver for us, which ultimately generates millions of dollars in tax revenue for you. So we're really excited about that. And again, we have some really smart folks crunching those numbers. So this seems like a worthwhile investment for us. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Ted, our lead architect on the project, just to take you through a detailed summary of the site and expansion plan. Ted, you there?
Yeah. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. We are truly excited about this, and I have to tell you, I give great kudos to Denise She has worked so well with us trying to foresee any kind of issues relative to the PUD and the zoning. And as a result of that, we have gone back and forth with some different plan configurations. And we're very confident that what we have now is going to be something that we can work with in the future. One thing that I will try to emphasize is that the amount of agency approval for this project is overwhelming. Zoning is the first step to get us into the state of Ohio marijuana control regulations, which are just unbelievable. Greene County building regulations, as everybody knows, is we're working with them. There's a health department, there are other agencies involved, and every time that we make a small revision, it starts a domino theory that goes all the way through the project. So a single delay on any one of those agency approvals is pushing the construction schedule, which is really, really difficult. So this zoning approval is incredibly important to us to get a good start in finalizing the engineering, the architecture, the structure, and getting our plans completed for submittal to Greene County for the building permit. And the idea for the phasing of the project is that the existing building is going to stay in operation while the two additions to the west and to the east are done. Once those additions are completed, we will start to phase out the original building and then go through a process of remodeling that. There is a plan to get rid of the greenhouses. They don't work for cultivation. They're very inefficient for yields. Therefore, the idea is to go with black boxes, use low LED lighting in stages so that it simulates seasons and daylight. So we'll have black boxes in the new addition and eventually in the old existing building. The site plan, to get to Sarah's comment, the site plan is very tight. And it will be developed and finished out as the final phase of the project is done, and really no more than what we have to for that phase. Unfortunately, as far as some of the parking goes, they'll put a base down. There will be a lot of construction workers, a lot of construction traffic. Those are important factors in trying to keep things maintained on the inside. And so that's the way it is. And the other thing I'll say about the site is that it is a secured site. So everybody that goes through the fence is monitored while on site. You get checked at the building. You have to check yourself when you go from area to area. And then when you leave and get in your car to leave, you're monitored all the way out the gate. So having two accesses, one to Enon and one to Springs Way, is somewhat difficult in that it's harder to secure. So the single entry is what we're planning at this stage. We think it'll work well. There are discussions regarding whether or not to have another semi-truck dock in anticipation that either incoming items are done at the same time to be able to stage those trucks. But we're still in kind of a preliminary planning stage for the internal workings of the thing. So we're going to ask for a condition that we can add another semi-loading dock. The other loading dock, when things leave, they leave from a secured and monitored area in a lock truck. And it's kind of like a Brinks truck for that matter. So it's very, very secured. Beyond that, I think, I think we covered everything. We can certainly answer questions. It's a complicated project. Excited to be involved in it. I can't think of a better company that represents Yellow Springs value like Cresco. So we're ready to get started.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Okay, any members of the Planning Commission have any questions for either Ted or Christian?
So, Ted, are there any provisions for smell? I was seeing articles where people who live around marijuana grow facilities, there's times of the year or the plant cycle where they can create a lot of smell.
I'll tell you, the mechanical systems for this building are unbelievable, really. They're very closed. Inside those grow rooms, the temperature differential year round is 2 degrees. So you can imagine that in order to maintain that temperature, the cycling of the air has got to be done in a way that it's recirculating everything. For example, the humidity that comes off of the plants during watering and grow is collected, recycled, and used for irrigation. It's filled with supplements and it goes back through and is used for irrigation. So it's like a terrarium. And there should not be, I mean, I have not, since I've been there, I have not had any odor issues with the filter systems of the mechanical systems at all. You would not know that it's a marijuana facility at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Denise, are you talking about a cement block building then, facade to the main corridor?
No. This will be a structural steel building with a metal skin of some sort. We're going back and forth about what kind of levels of performance that envelope has, whether it's solid foam or other things, but it's going to have a metal facade visually.
So are they willing to put like a mural or something on it? Cost is going to be a issue for doing a more contemporary facade?
Well, it's kind of an odd thing. You know, my first, one of my first comments to Cresco when we were talking about the building envelope was, you know, I want to see every color of the rainbow, you know, expressed on the building. However, that was immediately cut back by the security of the facility. That's why there are no signs. You can't make this look like it's something other than a secured facility. So we can't have a lot of stuff on the walls. We can't do a lot of things that we would normally do by state regs.
And I think there's, I'm sure, at least on the West Coast, that I've seen more modern, simplistic ways to break apart like a metal facade than doing something that you would see as a mural like downtown.
Sarah, if I can jump in too, I'm not an architect, but I hear you 100%. I think one of the things about Cresco and our facilities, whether it's retail or cultivation, is we try to make them really bright and vibrant and welcoming, right? And a lot of times we work with community organizations to do that. So you have my commitment. And again, I'm not an architect, but I'll work with Ted. We'll certainly work with planning and staff to make sure that it's something that's vibrant and welcoming and not, you know, just a cement block for it.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years down the line is more what I'm concerned of than right this second, but
100%.
Good point. Thank you.
Denise, the land to the north, right now it's in CAUV and it's being farmed, but do we know what the township zoning is on that or future use?
No, I don't. It's probably Ag 1, but I'm not sure.
It is. Jim Clem family owns property, and it's Ag 1.
See that on GIS as well.
Any other questions or concerns for Ted or Christian right now before I open the public hearing? I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on the application by Cresco Labs. So if any members of the public would like to comment about this, please raise your hands electronically. It looks like a couple people have raised their hands already. I think Rose. Can we get Rose up?
Hey, so I have a couple questions. Does this go to council after if you guys approve it? Or is this something that just is approved? And then I just wanted to comment that I do think that light spill is a really important issue. When I was on Planning Commission and Cresco came to us, I didn't even think of that. And when I toured the facility after it was done, I did see that there were blackout sort of curtains that could come down electronically over the windows to stop, to give the plants darkness during the day to, simulate winter or to make them bud or whatever it was. And so I'm curious as to why those curtains aren't being used at night when the lights are on in the greenhouse. But I'm really encouraged to hear that there are plans for that light spill to not happen anymore. And I would like to say that as a community member, I would argue with the fact that there isn't spill from the odors of the Cresco facility. Just that I know for a fact that it does spill. I'm not personally, I don't smell it at my house, so it doesn't impact me. I know that there's a system, I was shown a system that sprays like a Febreze-like substance if people do complain about the smell, but I don't know if that's really better or worse, or, if it was a tomato growing greenhouse, would it be as smelly, and would we mind as much? I think there's a stigma on the smell, so for me, it's an agricultural use. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rose.
To a cow farm, I'm sure.
Matthew Kirk, you have your hand up?
Yep, just unmuting here. Hey, can you see me?
Yep.
All right, great. I guess I had two things, maybe more of comments and questions, but one would be, I know Sarah had brought up something to make it look a little prettier. One thing we could possibly consider, I think, would be encouraging them to plant wildflowers or something like that in between the area from the road to the property. It's not going to be a height thing, but it would still, make it look more a natural part of the landscape. Also, as far as the smell is concerned, I guess one thing I think of as a parent of a kid and knowing the school conversation we have going on is that we're possibly considering siting a K-12 school right next to this facility. And I do know from having going to soccer and stuff on the Saturday mornings in the field adjacent to the high school is there's often a very party vibe going on out there. So I guess those are just kind of some things to take into consideration.
Okay, thank you very much.
Frank, I can talk about the lights and the shades. We made a change a little over almost a year and a half ago. So if you want more context to that, I'm happy to provide it.
Anybody else out there? We'll possibly come back to you for that houseway, but continuing with the public hearing, is there anybody else in the public out there that would like to comment on this? Either raise your hand. Matthew, did you have another comment, or is that an old raise your hand? I think that might be an old raise of his hand.
One of the things I wanted to mention, this is Denise, just is that
okay.
regarding location near schools, and I mean, that was a consideration for them to even be able to have this location, and the property, they could actually go all the way out with that additional 5 acres and still be outside of 500 feet from a church or a school. So that will not be an issue for them.
Raven?
I don't know why I can't raise my hand virtually on this. I just kind of wanted to make a comment about the aesthetics portion. As someone who lives downtown by a very aesthetically pleasing location, by the Keith Sally murals, I think that making it aesthetically not appealing is probably a good idea, as I have trespassers all day who walk into our garden or driveway. So to keep people off the property, it may be best to keep it discreet looking for security. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Is there anybody else like to participate in the public hearing on this? I'll give you a few more seconds to chime in. Okay. I'm going to go ahead then and close the public hearing and bring it back to Planning Commission, and maybe also come back to Ted and Christian to possibly address a couple of the topics that came up from the comments from the public. Specifically, and I have to ask about the odor thing, just because amongst people that I'm associated with on social media, there was a lot of jokes about the smell out by the high school, either sometime earlier today or yesterday. So perhaps Christian, if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll give a broad stroke and then Ted can button it up. I mean, across all of our facilities across the country, we are always looking for that state-of-the-art technology and mitigation systems for odor. So I have no doubt that when it comes to this expansion, we'll be using top-of-the-line machinery and technology to ensure that stays in-house. But also it'd be good to get a feel for the community as well. We'll be making passes on the ground quite often to ensure that we're doing tests and folks aren't getting a significant amount of odor, if any. So that was noted, and I appreciated Rose's comments on that, as well as the light spill too, which we're highly sensitive to, and Josue can speak a little more to that.
Yeah, Josue, did you want to add something on the light spill, or?
Yes, the light spill we made a change in 2019 to adjust the hours that the currents wouldn't be closed. So when Maxwell, the cultivation director at the time, came on board and they were trying to optimize their growing season, they requested an adjustment by, I believe, 1 or 2 hours of extending their closure of the currents. And it had to do a lot with the chemistry of the closing the shades and the condensation and water that it created in the greenhouse. So we adjusted the schedule, and this was a council action. Council weighed in on it. We took the recommendation to council, and they went on making the adjustment. So the team was very proactive in reaching out to us about the light situation, the effect that it was having on their cultivation process and whatnot. So I thought that it was a very pleasant work experience, because Max walked us through this process and was very thorough in justifying their extended hours. So we also allow for public opinion in that recommendation. So I just want to give you that context that we have been monitoring the light situation, and we were very thoughtful in how we approach allowing the expanded hours that they keep their shades open. But like Christian mentioned, I think this gets resolved in the expansion.
Right, because it's all going to be enclosed.
Correct.
In the future.
Enclosed. Right.
There shouldn't be any more light spill within indoors.
Okay, any members of the Planning Commission have any additional questions or concerns at this point?
I mean, I guess as a matter of precedence, Brian, the odor that they're speaking to, this is an agricultural type of odor for the where they're producing medication. I'm far more concerned about the children being affected by the smell of something like a distillery that's used for intoxicating effects. Are complaints about the odor taken the same way as it would if it was like a cattle farm?
No, this is an industrial district. ag, so it's not an ag use the way it would be in the township. So
If they were like making plastics, it would be taken in the same way, so it shouldn't be a consideration.
Because they are a production facility. Now, as far as cultivation goes, this was the challenge that everybody in the state had with respect to their zoning laws back in 2018 when Ohio passed the medical marijuana laws. How do we categorize it? Well, is it a greenhouse? Is it agriculture? But it's in an industrial district. They are cultivating and processing now. But as far as the Planning Commission's review of complaints about the odor, it would be just the same as any other cultivation or processing facility for any other industrial use. If you actually have a documented complaint about the odor versus just, as Frank noted, social media chatter.
So it's a stigma, not the, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, did council actually, or did the Planning Commission actually get any complaints about the odor on the record with respect to the consideration of the expansion? Or are we just, talking about what people were saying or on social media?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions anybody has? Okay. So now during the process of the discussion, a couple of things came up as possible considerations or conditions to put on, perhaps in addition to the conditions that staff had recommended. Anybody recall what that, Laura?
Yeah, I mean, have you closed the public hearing, Frank?
Oh, I thought I did. Maybe I forgot
okay.
to.
All right,
I'm not sure if I did. I'm not sure if I did or not. If I haven't, I guess I'm good. I did? Okay, I did.
All right. I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan with the conditions set forth by staff with 3 additional conditions. 1, to allow the option for an entrance for passenger vehicle traffic from Meenan Road. Number 2, a maximum height for the parking lot lighting fixtures at 20 feet. And 3, that a front facade design be enhanced with design or landscaping as approved by staff.
Can we add the phased parking so there's not excessive parking?
And a 4th phased parking so that they don't have to build more than is needed.
And to be able to have a third or a second semi-loading dock or a third loading area?
Would be a third if needed.
Okay, and that, I understood it that you could have up to 4, but okay, and a third if needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's the original staff recommendation and then 5 additional conditions.
Yeah, it's just to clarify that they're supposed to have 4 with the size that they have, but they're requesting less.
Okay.
But in my report, I said it was 2, but then they wanted the option of going up to 3. So that's, yeah. You're just allowing them to have less than what's required by the code.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I will second that motion. Judy, did you?
And sorry. I just want to make sure though that you're approving this as a phased 5-year plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what your staff
Yeah.
recommendation.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Frank, do you want me to read through the staff condition first and then conditions?
Yes. Yeah. For the public, why don't you do that, Dan?
All right. So the motion from Corliss is to approve the site plan review with the following conditions. 1, with each phase of development, Cresco will submit a complete set of building specifications, grading, surface drainage and drainage swale plans, driveway curb cuts and driveway specifications, low impact design specs for stormwater, parking, loading and storage, fencing, lighting, landscaping plans, and other plans as outlined in sections 4 and 5 of the Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions for review by the village's contracted civil engineer, public works director, and planning and zoning administrator prior to the issuance of zoning permits. with the option to add a vehicle entry point from Eden Road, that a maximum light height of 20 feet be imposed, that building enhancement is enacted as approved by staff, that phased parking is permitted, and that a third loading dock is permitted as needed.
Okay, any discussion of the motion? What's that?
I said, good job, Judy.
Yeah, good job.
Go with you,
Yes, that's
man.
impressive for,
Yeah.
man. All right, any discussion of the motion? Okay, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes. Stiles,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Amend,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here as well. All right, that gets us to old business. Do we have any old business?
No.
Okay. New business. I know, Stephen, you had mentioned, geez, a couple of days ago when we were talking about the minutes from the last meeting.
Yeah, just, I don't know where we fit this in, but we ought to, at some point, maybe we ought to have a discussion where we clarify about the use of those shipping containers as fences.
Yeah, those shipping containers are not being used as fences. Those are accessory structures, by the way.
He's going to have a fence around the outside.
They're going to have a fence around the outside.
But they're right on the property line.
Well, they're allowed to be on the alley. They're allowed to be right on the property line on the alley.
Okay, but on the other parts of that lot?
I'd have to go out and measure it. I mean,
Okay, all right,
they're accessory.
5 feet away.
Supposed to put a fence, I believe.
okay. All right, well,
Then if
that's,
there's,
then
if
that,
there's structures, then how many structures can you have on that lot?
As many as you want, so long as you don't see the lot coverage.
Yeah, and that was, then I calculated that in the report.
okay. So if we're clear that these are structures, not fences, that's fine, and that we treat them like structures, then that really answers the question.
Okay. Yeah.
Denise, do you have a few things?
Oh dear. Let's see. Wait a minute. I think I've got my
Here,
list.
while she's looking, I've had 2 people comment to me today about not being pleased that they had to request a link. I don't know what that's about. Saying that one of them said if it was a regular meeting and it wasn't during COVID, they would be able to walk in last minute. So I don't know what's going on with that at all, but I said I would relay the information to both of them.
I can address that, and that is that we have to have people request links. We've been bombed by unwanted people entering the meeting when links were not requested. And you can request a link clear through the meeting. I am watching my feed. I've got my phone on. All the information as to how to request a link is printed on that agenda. You could pop in right this second and ask for a link, and I would email it to you right now.
Yeah, and just to follow up with what she said, we used to post the link, and that's why she's saying we had security problems. But also, we have more than one link, and depending on what meetings are going on, Judy makes a determination as to which link she's going to use.
I figured that was the case, but I didn't know. So,
Did you have something else, Sarah, or was okay? All right, anything else? Yeah.
For new business, this is in the category of tweaking of TGL legislation. But I think one tweak, and maybe we just add this to the list, among others, is, 1 year is not enough for people to, if they're going to do a conversion, rehabilitation, construction, it's hardly anymore. Getting contractors and it. So anyway, I think it should be a minimum of 2 years from approval, but okay.
I think that's something good to bring up, and also that, with the smoking areas that you proposed, that can be an additional, let's do a special requirement, an additional suggestion to 1262 to council if planning commission wants to take that up at the next meeting and craft some language to that effect to pass on to council.
Yeah, that's going to take a little bit of staff effort, not a lot, but a little bit, because that expiration is also in other sections of the code as well, where it's only giving you a year. So we would need to review that and bring it to you.
Well, and we've talked about, the zoning code was adopted in 2013. It probably does date from 2013, but COVID revealed some systemic issues, especially with supply chains. And if Planning Commission wants to be more generous and ask council to amend the code to be more generous to property owners, it can absolutely do that.
There's one more, the one that Sarah sent me, and that's during the financial review of requiring commercial insurance for the properties that are non-operator occupied or TGLs in general, just because of the nature of the business activity that's happening on the facility.
Well, and that was the certificate of liability and property insurance. And I did speak to Perk Rightly about something else, and I kind of asked what their underwriting with their companies looks like. And it's definitely excluded off of the HO4, HO5, HO2, HO1, DP3, DP2, DP1. Some companies allow the structure to be excluded and then a commercial policy added on. Only one of his companies would even allow them to do a TGL within the household, as long as it was within the primary household while the occupant was living in the house, as fitting under roomers and boarders. So there's a significant issue there with coverage, which would obviously impact the neighborhood if something were to happen and all the claims would be denied. And that's an easy thing that can be set up as a notification automatically when properties get renewed. It just gets mailed to the village automatically. If it cancels, you'll be notified automatically by mail.
And our current contractors that are required to issue us a certificate of liability, that's how it works. We get an automatic certificate of liability mailed to us.
Same thing. Yeah.
Can I suggest that you add this to future agenda items if you want to create a laundry list of changes you may want to make, because you're bringing up a lot of ideas and people have already left the meeting and they don't know you're discussing it.
Right. Well, and another thing to add to the laundry list, I'd be interested in discussing what we could do as far as resolving the issue of what proximity means as well. I think that'd be a good discussion to have as well. So
You took the words out of my mouth, Frank.
yeah, so and maybe we can figure out what that means.
I should have said it, but I didn't. Sorry.
Yep.
And I would also like to see, I know you discussed it at your last meeting, but looking at the total number of TGLs in the community. And maybe council needs to set a moratorium while they're looking at this, waiting for some good information. But I really think you need to be looking at setting a limit.
All right. Anything else anybody has for new business or agenda planning?
Oh, agenda.
No, are we going to be having?
Oh, I didn't realize you were doing agenda planning. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were doing agenda planning. So
I just hopped to it.
Oh, okay. So again, we've got 225 Corey Street, 314 Dayton Street that may be coming up in June. I don't know. And then address.
Are we going to have a second meeting in May?
No, we got through all this. So we ended up not having 225 Corey and 314 Dayton. So right now we don't have any, like last time at this time, we already had applications on top of those two that were proposed. The only thing we have is a 203 North Winter Street, an accessory dwelling unit and transient guest lodging application. And then let's see. We also want to add have a conversation about this might be under future addressing standards. Brianne was talking about the fact that in chapter 1022 we have a numbering of the buildings, which was adopted back in 1987, and about moving it to the planning code under chapter 1221. We just need to maybe tighten that up. Especially since we have these ADUs, how we're gonna, could we address them as a half number or apartment number without taking away the idea of that they're not separate from the property? And we also want to have a conversation about lot minimums. Brianne, that's based on, let's see here. That was based on some language that recently changed with a 2019 case with the Supreme Court ruled that home rule doesn't override Chapter 711.09 and that we can't impose a greater minimum lot area than 4,800 square feet. So we wanted to talk about that. And put that under future. I think that's about it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Light agenda.
That just leaves us with adjournment.
Yes.
So moved.
I second it. All those approve of adjourning, say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Welcome back, Susan.
Thank you.